Mayor, do you mind letting me in again? My computer's messing up.
Not a problem. All right, guys. Well, good evening. It's 6 o'clock. We're going to get started. It looks like I've got everybody here that is on the council, and we're going to have a quorum here. So I want to just remind you that we're going to do voice votes again this evening, just like we did last city council. And that's going to require that you guys take some time. Don't forget to mute and unmute yourselves, just to kind of control the conversation. And if you need to leave or whatever, come back. If you have any issues on the computer, feel free to do so, and I'll admit you as quick as I can, get you back in, okay?
Okay.
All right, well, said it's 6:02, and we will get started. Pastor Harris, sir, thank you for being with us this evening. If you would, go ahead, unmute yourself, and open us up with an invocation. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Can you hear
Yes, sir.
me now? Okay. Let's bow our head. Heavenly Father, we come to you as humbly as we know how, Lord, seeking your guidance and leadership with this city council. Give the mayor, judge, and each worker a spirit of understanding, loving one another, and helping our neighbors. Jesus Christ, we invite you into the city council meeting today, realizing we cannot do anything without you, Lord. We thank you for our city, citizens of Lone Oak. We thank you for all the city improvements that you, Lord, have blessed the city to have. Bless the planning that the board have for Lone Oak's future. I pray, Lord, that you will continue to give this mayor, the board, vision and a good-hearted spirit, Lord, to lead the city into the future. Bless over each city employee family. Bless the first responders, police department. And I pray a blessing right now, Lord, over the city. In the name of Lord, our Savior and Jesus Christ, we decree this prayer in your son's name. Amen.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Clerk, if you would, please call the roll.
Okay, I just want to make sure everyone can hear me.
Hear you.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor.
Here.
Philip Howe. Miss Stewart.
Here. Here.
Cordell.
Here.
Okay. Mrs. Bridges. Here. Mrs. Elmore.
Here.
Mr. Biles.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Hatton,
Here.
Mr. Florence,
Here.
Mr. Butler,
Here.
we have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you very much. The minutes from the April 13th regular meeting were issued digitally through a Google Drive. And as long as everybody's had an opportunity to review those, they were made available last week, Thursday evening. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from April the 13th.
So
I make
moved.
the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Motion is made by Coy Butler. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, seconded by Raymond Hatton. Any discussion on the meeting minutes from April the 13th? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. All right, minutes from April the 13th are passed. Likewise, a special meeting was held to discuss the water bill May 1st. As long as everybody's had an opportunity to review those meeting minutes, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second. Cordell.
Motion by Alice Bridges, second by all right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
All opposed. Let me do that one more time. Any opposition, all opposed. All right. Meeting committee, the first are passed. Thank you very much. We've got a guest with us tonight, Miss Emily Zelfini from Service Line Partners. She has been very diligent and reached out to speak with me about what it is that Service Line offers. And so I'm going to share my screen with everybody. I've got a presentation that she sent with us, and she's going to educate us real quickly on exactly what it is that her company provides and how Lonoc can benefit from it. So let me get this presentation started real quick. Emily, how are you doing? Welcome.
Thank you. I'm doing well. I hope you're all doing well as well. I appreciate you all giving me this time tonight, especially in this new virtual world we're living in. But again, my name is Emily Zelfini. I represent the National League of Cities Service Line Warranty Program, which is, of course, the only service line program actually endorsed by the NLC. We're also a preferred partner of the Arkansas Municipal League. Quick background on the company that I work for. So I work for a company actually called HomeServe. We administer this program as well as the ServeLine program, which is a newer program. We can get into at a later date. But we've been in this business for about 16 years now. We've been working with the NLC since 2010. And actually in 2013, as well as 2018, we won the Torch Award for Marketplace Ethics, which is obviously something we're really, really proud of. And we're always trying to work as hard as we can to maintain some pretty high ethical standards. Now, what this program is really designed to do is to try and help address some of the public policy issues related to aging underground utility infrastructure, which is obviously starting to plague a lot of the communities across the country. So we know that communities are always doing everything you can to update and maintain all sorts of public infrastructure. But on the homeowner side, there's just not really much you can do. So that's really the reason why the NLC started looking at programs like this one, because they wanted to try and make sure that something would be available for every city across the country. So they went ahead, they did the research, hopefully to make it easier on all of you. And we were the company that they chose to work with. So now what we actually do is we would partner with your city. And that's what allows us to make our voluntary program available for your residents. So our goal then is to educate homeowners on their responsibility for their water and sewer lines on their property, while at the offer the option of getting protection on those lines if they want it. So it's totally optional. It's done with a turnkey approach, meaning we handle all the aspects of the program ourselves, from the marketing, billing, claims, customer service, everything. And there is no cost whatsoever to participate in the program for the city. In fact, we actually offer a small incremental revenue based on participation. So just for me personally, and if you want to skip another slide, that'd be great. What I find to be most beneficial about this program is that it does help to raise awareness. There's usually a pretty similar story in most areas. And if a homeowner does have an issue with their water or sewer line, they'll call out to the city. You send somebody out, and oftentimes you find the issues on their side and you can't really do much to help them. We also find, and I'm sure you're all pretty well aware too, that a lot of homeowners don't really know or don't really understand that they're responsible for those lines, or like I did, thought that their homeowner's insurance policy covered it. And I can only imagine if I had found out because I had a major issue, then obviously you have to do some research, find a contractor, pay for everything out of pocket. So I kind of like to think of this program almost like a free public awareness campaign for the city, because what we'd be doing is sending out a letter to each resident, letting them know which portion of their line they're actually responsible for, and letting them know that the city's working with us in order just to help make it a solution available for them, or an option available for them if they want it. You can click again to the next slide. So of course, for the homeowners who enroll, we'd offer them a little peace of mind. Basically, for a few dollars a month, they would transfer the risk of their lines to us. Then if they were to have any issue, whether it's a broken, cracked, leaky pipe, a tree root penetration, clog that needs to be cleared, whatever it might be, they get a call. We have US-based call centers. They're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And they work with local area contractors for our repairs. So that's kind of another key aspect of this program, is we try and do our best to only use local area contractors. We do it for a few reasons. Number one, we'd like to keep the money within your community as best we can, but also we really just expect that they're going to be familiar with any codes or requirements, or anything unique in the area. So we expect them to get the job done up, not just to our standards, but up to yours as well. And when it comes to the selection of those contractors, we generally let our partners be as involved or uninvolved in that part of the process as you'd like. Some of our partners have offered a list of contractors working within the area, which gives us a nice starting off point, or have had input as far as what contractors have great or not so great reputations, but we don't really expect that much. We always have our own vetting procedures that we go through, which include making sure that they have the proper amount of insurance, that they're licensed, complaints with the BBB. We check to make sure that they have access to the proper equipment. And we also go as far as running background checks and drug screenings. So we really just try to do everything we can from our side to hopefully make sure that the homeowners should feel comfortable working with the contractors we work with. Then as for the contractors, we do not ask them to pay us a fee or anything like that to join our network. And we don't tell them what they can charge. They can still charge their standard rates. So then as far as homeowners are concerned, they would have 3 completely separate, completely voluntary options for protection. So there's one for the external water line, one for the external sewer line, and the third's for in-home plumbing. Now the 2 external lines, they're set up pretty much identically as far as how they work, but we tailor the coverage to the portion of the line that the homeowner is actually responsible for. But if a homeowner enrolled, what they would receive for either one of those would be up to $8,500 of protection per incident. We have no service fees, no deductibles, no annual or lifetime limits, and we do not limit the number of claims that they can file in a year. The third option, if you want to change the slide again, really just picks up where those 2 leave off, and that is the in-home plumbing. For that, we offer up to $3,000 per incident. So that's for any water, sewer, or drain line inside the home after the point of entry. It does include a line that might be embedded under a slab or a basement floor, as well as something simple like a clogged toilet. Again, no service fees, no deductibles, no annual or lifetime limits. This was put together. They really just decided, they didn't want a $75 service fee to stop somebody from going ahead and giving us a call to get their issue taken care of as quickly as possible. And of course, people tend when they don't have to worry about spending a ton of money out of pocket or searching around for a contractor. I do want to point out it's not a reimbursement program. So if a homeowner enrolls, they give us a call into our call center to file. We'll find them a contractor, send the contractor out, and then we actually pay the contractors directly. So no money's exchanging hands generally between the homeowner and the contractor. So one of the other sort of features of the program that I kind of mentioned in the beginning is the incremental revenue that we offer. The way that that works is we offer 50 cents per month per paid warranty contract. So basically up to $1.50 per month per household. And that is completely optional. We pay it out once a year in the form of a royalty in January. We don't tell you what to do with it, but most of our partners who take it will put it back towards the community in one way or another. You do, though, have the option, though, to turn it down as well. And in that case, we basically just pass the savings to the homeowners who actually enroll by lowering the cost of their protection by that 50 cents a month. So if you want to change the slide again, one of the biggest things I always anticipate speaking about is how we market the program, because it really is the meat of the agreement between my company and the city. So we really only market by direct mail. There's no door-to-door, no telemarketing. We try not to bombard people with a ton of mail. We have a maximum of 3 mail campaigns each year. And we try and keep our letters to be kind of as educational or as informational as we can. Again, they just start out letting the homeowner know what part of their line they're responsible for, letting them know that the city thought it was important enough that number one, they were educated in that, and number two, they have an option for protection if they want it. We do make it very clear that it is coming from an outside company, not from the city itself. And we make it clear that it's optional, it is not mandatory. So what we ask of from the city in the partnership is really 2 things. So number one, we ask for the use of the city logo on marketing material. That's really what helps us to introduce the program, gets people to open the letter and actually read it. Of course, the more enrollments we get, the better pricing we can offer, better protection we can offer, and the better local area contractor we can build, I should say. Now, the second thing that we ask of from the city, because we ask for the logo, is actually for your review and approval of that marketing material before each campaign. So we email everything over, give you a chance to look at it. If you had any issues with the messaging, we'll work with you on it at that point. Once we receive an approval from the city, we let you know when we're going to mail, so you know when your residents will receive the information. And then if for any reason we don't get, we just don't mail. And that goes for each campaign. So really the city has the say as to if and when we mail. And of course that has, something to do with our partnership with the NLC as well as the Arkansas Municipal League, but also just kind of the ethical standards of the company. We always want to try and make sure that, we have your best interest and your residents' best interest at heart. And we think we maintain that by keeping you involved in the messaging. So you always know what's going out. We always like to be pretty transparent, as far as the program in general. So if at any point you had any questions as far as how many people have enrolled, claims that we've paid, contractors we use, whatever it might be, we can always provide that information. If you want to change the slide again, that would be great. So as of today, we have over 750 partners across the US. That does include 6 currently in Arkansas. Now we've saved over $400 million for residents on repairs so far, and over our time in business, we've maintained a 4 out of 5 star overall satisfaction rating. If you want to do one more click here to the next slide. So our 6 partners in Arkansas are Conway Corporation, Eureka Springs, Helena, West Helena, Fort Smith, Little Rock, and North Little Rock. And if Lone Oak decides that you would like to make this available for your residents, basically what we'd be asking you to do is to approve and enter into our marketing agreement, which gives us the ability to use the city logo on that marketing material. It does have some safeguards built into it for the city staff, elected officials, really everyone's indemnified and held harmless on your end. and also states that you have the final say as to if and when we actually mail anything out. So when, let's say, you decided to approve, when I receive that signed agreement, our next step would be to schedule an onboarding phone call so I could gather the last bit of information I need to get started for the marketing campaign. And about 6 to 8 weeks later, ideally, we send out our first letters, which is what makes the program available to residents, just to give you a kind of a timeline idea. But I know that was a lot of information, and I appreciate you all listening patiently. Did you have any questions or thoughts, concerns on the program?
Emily, that's a good presentation. I really
What?
appreciate it. I'm gonna real quickly, Jim Kelly, our public works supervisor, and I were discussing some other business today, and he actually was talking about the connection between the main line and the house and the home, and some of the unanticipated additional corrections that we actually had to make. We're in the middle of a huge water sewer project in town right now. So we do have aging infrastructure in our community. There's no doubt that we have some type of a need for what it is that you guys offer. And I know that if anybody from the council has any questions, I want to open that up. But also want Ginger Stewart, our attorney, to also weigh in on her perspective of it, because I know she did some digging around and did some research. And the National League of Cities holds this service in some esteem. And so I think it's a good product. I think it's a good opportunity for the residents and customers in our community to be afforded some coverage. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just to add to what I had done, I'd kind of done some research on it. Apparently there's several companies that do this kind of thing. But this one in particular has been endorsed by the National League of Cities, the NLC that she was speaking of, and the Arkansas Municipal League. And I spoke with an attorney friend of mine that's city attorney in North Little Rock. She said that they've been with them for years, and the only real issues they ever have are that sometimes people get confused about their marketing campaigns. They contain the mayor's signature on it or city something on it, and sometimes people think that they may not necessarily be allowed to use the city's marks, but that is allowed. And she said that she personally has one of these policies. So she said that North Little Rock has had good experiences with it.
Anything from the council?
What
I think it's a
what
good idea
percentage do
too.
you
I for
normally
one
find
would,
the most?
replace the,
Okay, I heard Michael McCoy. Michael, go ahead, sir.
I said, I think it's a good idea. I myself, many years ago, had to replace a line from my house to the street. And had I been able to pay $6 or $8 a month for it, it'd be a whole lot better. So I'm all for it.
Boy, did you have a
What percentage of
question?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. What percentage of most cities do you find participate in a program like this?
So it varies, but generally our standard agreement is a 3-year initial term. So over that 3 years, usually it ranges somewhere between 10% and 20%, which I know is a pretty large range. Most are probably right around the 15%.
Okay, anything else from
May
Ms.
I say
Alpini?
something? I just wanted to make a
Yes, ma'am.
comment. I know 3 people in my ward essentially on my street that have had this problem in the last 2 years of a problem with the line where it connects to the city. And I think it's something that would be very beneficial for our community.
Anything else?
I got a question.
Mr. Mayor, this is Ryan Biles.
How do you determine?
Okay, I heard Jim Kelly and Ryan Biles. Ryan, go ahead, and then we'll close
Mr.
with Mr. Kelly.
Okay, thanks. I apologize, Jim. Just a minor item in on page, what's it, page 26 of our packet. It's the marketing agreement. Item B, city obligate, under item 2, number B, city obligations. And this is for Emily, just to find out if the property owner data that's included, is that limited to the items that are specified here in this clause, or are there additional points of data that might be included in what's being shared with the company?
So it would generally be limited to that. Otherwise, we draw up something new. However, that's actually something that's optional. The city does not have to provide any of that data unless you choose. We are more than happy to buy from a third party. And then, of course, we would love it if the city would, help verify and make sure everything is correct, but we don't ask you to actually provide it unless you want to.
Okay, thank you. And I do note that it indicates that there, it would be collected in compliance with all the applicable laws, statutes, and all the things that regulate that. I just was curious if there were any additional items that might fall under that definition of property owner data. So thank you for answering that.
Thank you.
Jim?
All right, how do you determine who qualifies for the coverage? Say like a property owner was either by neglect or some other form destroyed their own service line or damaged it. Does that qualify as well?
So unfortunately, a lot of the time it won't. So there's kind of two parts to that question. I want to make sure I'm answering everything. As far as a homeowner, that when they decide to enroll, there's no sort of inspection or anything like that. We basically just ask them, is the line in good working order? As long as they say yes, they're able to enroll. There is a 30-day wait before they can actually use the protection. And that's obviously just kind of to safeguard us. Believe it or not, that's relatively new. Within the past couple of years, we used to not have any sort of wait. And of course, we kind of got bitten by that. But then once they do have the protection, unfortunately, a lot of the third-party neglect and things like that sort of issues would not be covered. So say if someone was digging in a yard and, hit their pipe and that's the cause of the repair, they could call and, if they say that that's how they did it, they probably would tell them it wouldn't be covered, but we'd send out a contractor anyway, and they'd be able to use the contractor if they chose to. And then it kind of would be up to the contractor to determine how it happened.
Okay. Also, did y'all go by a former name previously?
We did.
Company name?
So it's a strange situation. We were utility service partners for a very long time. Basically, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, we merged with a company called HomeServe. And now they're doing away with the utility service partners brand name, just going directly into HomeServe. We've also recently acquired another company called ServeLine that does a similar thing as well. So that's probably the confusion that's kind of all throughout the packages.
Yeah, I've heard of ServeLine, and it was actually endorsed by ARWA. One thing I knew from the past with ServeLine was customers were automatically enrolled and then had to opt out, I think. Is that correct? Is that changed?
So that is correct. Actually, the ServeLine product that we are going to be offering as well would be that way, but it is a different product. This is not an opt-out product. It's an opt-in. So it's completely optional for homeowners. We don't automatically enroll anyone. The ServeLine product is actually mainly a water loss product. So it would cover high water bill if someone had a leak or a break. And that option is opt-in. It's a relatively new option for us to be handling. So I didn't get into all of that yet, but that would be optional if the city wanted to do that at a later date as well.
Emily, good job, good answers. I'm going to move forward for the sake of time, and I appreciate you guys. What we're going to do is no action is to be taken tonight on any of this. It's a great presentation. I'd like the council to consider it for the next month, and then I'll likely bring something forward for decision at next city council. Do you have anything, final comments for us, Ms. Emily?
Just thank you so much for giving me some of your time tonight. I appreciate it. And if anyone has any questions, my contact information is on the last page of the PowerPoint in your packet. So feel free to reach out. Otherwise, thank you all so much. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate it. Take care. All right. And Ms. Alfini, don't feel like you need to stay around. You're more than welcome to opt out of the meeting. Got other things to do.
All right. Thank you.
As you wish. All right. So moving on, we'll get 2 reports. And first on is the 2022 report with Ms. Anna McClung. And briefly, I want to introduce Michael Jones. He's hanging in there with us tonight. He started working as our Vista, AmeriCorps Vista position in City Hall. So we're excited to have him, excited to have the increased capacity. And we look forward to what he's going to bring to the table. So I don't know if you can see him in your grid or not, but he's here with us tonight and spent a whole day working in City Hall. So Ms. Anna, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So even though there's been some restraints due to the pandemic situation, progress is being made from our Lone Oak 2022 teams. Today, several of the members actually met with Michael Jones, the new AmeriCorps Vista employee. And among his other duties, he's going to be serving as a liaison between the Lone Oak 2022 teams and the city, and to help us implement some of our strategic plan. And as a first step, some of the members took him on a driving tour of Lone Oak so he could see some of the schools, parks, businesses, and industry. And so we look forward to working with Michael and welcome him to the community. Our Lone Oak Leadership Luncheon series has been paused due to the pandemic, but we are going to host a video conversation on Facebook and YouTube on Tuesday, May 19th. And this is going to be presented by Mark Winslow, who's with Arkansas Blue Cross Blue Shield. And he'll be speaking on leading in time. May 12th. The Downtown Support Committee is going to be represented by Natalie Biles, who will make a presentation to the Main Street Arkansas Board. And this is the last step in being considered to be part of the Arkansas Downtown Network program. And a decision on that is expected later this week. A walk audit will be conducted by UAMS and University of Central Arkansas on June 10th. And this will be an assessment of how pedestrian flow is through our town to determine any obstacles or barriers for people of different ages and physical abilities walking through our area. And any community member interested in participating in this walk audit should contact Ryan Biles about that. Our beautification team is going to start the Yard of the Month award program with the first judging going to take place the first week of June. Placards will be placed in the winning yards and in each of the 4 quadrants of the city. And this is to honor those that have worked so hard to make our town so beautiful and charming. So that's it for Lone Oak 2022. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Anna. I appreciate all the work you guys are doing, as does everybody else. So I appreciate it. All right, Gene, are you with us, sir?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Yes, sir. All right, next up is Gene Eagle with the Economic Development Report.
Good evening, everybody. The first thing I wanted to just give you a highlight was the results of the Blackman auction that occurred in Lone Oak this past Friday. So I can just give you just a quick update. All the property on the south side of I-30 on both sides of the freeway. This property had been in a family that was outside the state of Arkansas, and there had been some really long-term leases in place going back years and years. It was interesting to see businesses that I thought owned their property were in fact leasing. But as a result of this auction, all the property was sold and changed hands. Just quickly, it was sold in 3 tracts, 1.88 acres, including an 8,615 square foot metal building. This was the Terminex building that I think most of you might know it as on the west side of the freeway. It was sold for $201,000 to Galen McGee. The second tract was about 50,000 acres plus or minus for the balance of the property south of that metal building. That was purchased also by Galen McGee for $65,000. The third tract, comprising about 26 acres, it's on the east side of Highway 31, selling for $155,000. And this included several building structures, the storage units managed by Knox Realty, the Old Perry Motel and the Perry Restaurant. All that went to a gentleman out of North Little Rock, Eli Kojeru of Creative Wall Systems. He's a local real estate investor. That's a quick update on that. We did some research in preparation for that, trying to learn as much as we could about it, because it included some acreage that adjoins existing city property. It joins the ground that butts up against the water sewer treatment. So we're just trying to pay attention. One of the things we wanted to do was just understand as much as we could about the property, to be prepared to bid if we needed to do. I think the important takeaway is that this property is now under local control, and that instead of having to deal with someone out of state, it's here in central Arkansas. And I think it is a good move for the local businessmen to acquire it, and looking forward to working with them. If there's not any questions, I can stop there and just tell you that I appreciate Karen Dill assisting me with some of the research as the head of the Planning and Zoning Commission. She was able to pinpoint all the property owners around all of that subject property that was being sold. Thank you, Karen.
All right. Thank you, Gene. I appreciate the update. We're just going to move forward because we spent a little extra time on this serve line, home serve briefing. So I want to get going and get the administrative reports knocked out. So are there real quick, are there any questions for Gene before we move on? Okay, Gene, I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
All right, Mike Brown, sir, the floor is yours with the community center update. Hey, Mike, can you hear me? Go ahead and unmute so we can all hear you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay, we opened back up on May 4th, and well, since opening, we've been open 7 days. We've averaged about 20 members a day. Probably one of the main reasons because we had to cut down on some of our equipment. So you can use probably 40% of the equipment. But I guess when the kids I'll be able to come back, I think we'll pick up and be as busy as we've ever been. May 22nd is when the governor announced that the swimming pool will be open for the summer. So we're planning some things on that. We've got some training with some lifeguards to help people to, keep social distance. And that's pretty much it. Just happy to be open.
Thanks, Mike. Are there any questions? Okay, moving on. Public Works report, Mr. Jim Kelly, sir, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Standard monthly report, water loss of 16.9%. We had spring cleanup going on this past week, and I would consider it to be pretty successful. We've already loaded 23 dumpsters. We had 7 empty. I think we filled up an additional 2 today. So we'll probably end up out the door with 30 full dumpsters or nearly by the end of this. 3 steel dumpsters or scrap metal dumpsters were also filled. The South Center culvert replacement, we anticipate we're going to start on that project within the next 2 weeks. The sidewalk job is almost completed. All the installation has been done. Right-of-way restoration is the only thing that remains. And now that we're getting into good weather, I'm going to ensure that the contractors are going back and repairing these easements and right-of-ways that they've been working in now that they're finally accessible and manageable. Other than that, I do have an item that action needs to be taken on tonight. It's a reconciliation change order. These quantities were discussed back in December, our estimated quantities in comparison to our final quantities, but it's finally time to go on and do the change order. And that would be for $309,591.00.
I make a motion we change order as read.
Motion's made. Do I have a second?
This is Ryan, and I second that motion.
All right, motion by Coy Butler and seconded by Ryan Biles. Any discussion items? Any questions? All right, we'll take it to a vote then. Don't forget to unmute. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Jim, do you have anything else for us?
No, sir. Thank y'all very much.
Appreciate it. One thing I'm going to add to what you said was easement right-of-way restoration. And so I'm working with Jim and Jack at least a couple of days a week. We discuss what the sidewalk project's actually going to look like before we get out. And it is drying up, and it is getting easier to work with. And so for anybody that's out there and your constituents that have major concerns that their sidewalk is done and that the contractors have left town, please ensure them that we're going to make sure the project is seen all the way through. So they put their minds at ease. And if they have any questions, have them call us, please, directly. All right. Next report's police department. Go ahead, Coy.
Yeah, I just had a question, Jim, and I may be just late on this, but one sidewalk repair that I feel like might behoove the city is there's an area of the sidewalk between the Presbyterian parcel and the park that was not included in the grant. And it is all tore up. We had to take some trees down there a year or two ago. It is a really, really rough stretch of sidewalk, maybe 150 feet. Would there be any way we could get a bid out on that, or is it too late for them to look at that to see if the city could pay additionally to get that little stretch of sidewalk completed, and that would just kind of join the nice sidewalk that the older part of the city or the downtown part of the city has with that of the park?
Ms. Regina, do you know the certain rules pertaining to the way we funded this project, if that is even possible?
It's funded through a sidewalk grant, through a TAP grant, through Metro Plan. So I don't know if you can do a change order on it at this point. That would probably be a question for Kanya.
Okay. We can look into it though, Coy, and then maybe provide some options.
Jim, I believe the linear foot estimate's about $67. That's what I think Jack provided us for Lincoln Street. And if you did that at 150 feet, it's almost $10,000 that we'd be looking at if it is 150 feet, and if it were $67 per linear foot. So just to kind of give you some scope of what it might look like to connect Academy and South Center with that easement that goes towards the Methodist Church.
Okay. Well, I'll sure take a look at it.
Boy, thanks for that. We'll get some information together, and then we can bring it to the next city council if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sorry for not mentioning that earlier.
No, I think it's good. All right, moving forward. Chief Edwards, Police Department report. Sir, the floor is yours.
Good evening. In front of you, get the monthly report. Of course, our numbers are a little down due to COVID issues, especially our billing to immigration and probation and parole. Total amount was $6,750. 390 of that was billed to immigration, and $6,360 was billed to probation. Other than that, that's all I have to report. Questions?
All right, no questions. We're going to move on. Let me keep up with the slides here. Sorry. Please. And Mr. Daniel Salinger is with us. Daniel took Bill Blankenship's position. He's going to be our Community Development Director. He started today as well. Daniel, welcome. Glad to have you with us this evening, sir. If you'd like to say a quick statement or so, please feel free to.
Just a quick one. I usually go by Dan, so if you see me, just call me Dan. I'm looking forward to working with everybody. It looks like you have a very good program already in place, and I just hope that I can continue to build upon that and look forward to the future.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. All right. Chief Wittenberg with the fire report.
Good evening. You should have the monthly report in front of you. We had 6 EMS calls, 13 fire calls, a total of 19. Due to the COVID, the EMS calls were down because we were letting the ambulance handle a lot of that. An average of 5.63 personnel per call. The other thing I have is the ice machine. We weren't expecting this to go out, but we do need your consideration on this. I did get 3 bids. The one you have in front of you is the lowest. It's from Superior Ice in Little Rock. The bid says $31,150. After noticing the filtration system needs a little attention, I want to add $400 to that if that's okay. And it's still going to be the lowest bid.
I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion. Okay, there's motion by Ms. Suzette and seconded by Ms. Alice Bridges. Any questions or discussion items? I'm going to take it to a vote then. Don't forget to unmute. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the motion carries.
Okay, the other thing, the ice machine currently is on fixed assets that we have, and we're going to trade it in for $150. So we need to remove that from fixed assets. I believe that needs y'all's attention also.
I believe he's right. Regina, could you just give us a confirmation? I see you shaking your head.
Yes, we need to vote to remove the old ice machine.
Very well. All right. Well, then I'll entertain a motion to take the old ice machine off of our assets list.
So moved.
Okay, I heard a motion made by Coy Butler. Do I have a second?
Second, Michael.
Seconded by Michael Florence. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Justin, you got anything else for us, sir?
No, sir. Thank y'all for the attention.
Good job. All right. Mr. Ordon, the floor is yours, sir. Parks and Mosquito report.
Well, the governor gave us kind of a blessing today to resume around the 31st of May practices. I didn't hear it, but I've had a couple coaches call me and tell me that's what happened. If that's so, we're going to start probably practice for 2 weeks and start playing games around the 15th of June. And we'll play the 15th of June through the month of July and probably end around the 1st of August or right before school starts anyway. And mosquito spraying will probably start, today's the 11th. It's been cool. We'll probably start spraying mosquitoes toward the end of May and when it starts heating back up. Other than that, Mayor, that's about all I've got.
Are there any questions for Roy Don? Okay, good job. Thanks, sir. All right, moving on. The budget and finance report, Mr. Philip Howell.
Of course, there's a lot there. I guess the overall view is, for January, February, and March, things look pretty good. But of course, those right after those months is when it started in March, and some of our numbers don't include income from March because it's not reported till April. But all in all, the first quarter looks very good, all things considered. You might look at the sales tax comparison numbers, and you can see there that we received through March, but that income was actually from February before the problems started, and that trend was slightly up. We certainly expect that to decline when we receive March and April numbers, and who knows for what period after that. And we sort of see the same trend in the A&P revenue. The trend was slightly up, and we expect that to be slightly down for hopefully a short duration. As far as the budget itself for the quarter, really there's nothing, I guess a few things that might bear a little comment. Of course, you remember, well, community development is our new department, so to speak, and there's some initial startup costs there that kind of figure into that $36,000 loss for the first quarter. They do have sources of income they can draw from. If you look at some of the startup expenses, including a vehicle and some other things, it totals over $36,000. So most of that red number you're looking at is startup cost. The others that you see there that are in the red for one reason or another, those two have been operating primarily off of cash in the first quarter, and they have not drawn to speak of from their 1 cent money or other tax revenue that they can draw from. So their liquidity is good right now. And Matt mentioned, of course, his detention income that could fall off some, which would affect criminal justice. We'll just have to see how that plays out as well. All in all, we're in a pretty good liquid position to get through this thing, as long as it doesn't have a very long, prolonged period of time. If it does, there's things we'll have to do. You in a special meeting the other day, some of the water delinquency issues were mentioned. We'll have to see how that goes. Very likely, I don't know what the city will do, but we're going to have some water bills build up that the ability to pay is going to be tough. We're going to be looking at some payment plans and such as that, I suppose, but that'll all come before you at a later date. Meanwhile, if you have any specific questions, we are trying to avoid any non-essential expenses, and we'll continue to do that till we get a much better handle on what our revenue loss might look like. Of course, there's some relief from the government that we can apply for, and I know the mayor and Regina have worked on those numbers diligently to present for any that we might be able to get, and we'll see what those might be. But of course, those that income will be somewhere out in the future as well. But meanwhile, if you have any questions, feel free to call or email me, and I'll answer those as best I can.
Philip, real quick, I want to add something to what you said in terms of the city being reimbursed. Everything that's been purchased for COVID prevention in the past 2 months has been labeled appropriately. And I had a call with Congressman Crawford and Congressman Bacon of Nebraska with Matt Boyles just 2 days ago, and they wanted to discuss with some mayors across Arkansas the potential. What they're attempting to pass is the Flex Act, and that would take a portion of the money that's been appropriated through the CARES Act to the state of Arkansas and allow municipalities to apply for that and hopefully support police and fire, essentially, who's most likely going to take a hit from our dip in anticipated sales tax revenues. More to come on that, but there are some things in the works to help cities weather the storm also.
Mayor, Mr. Mayor, this is Matt.
Hey, Matt.
I couldn't get unmuted a second ago. I had a question for Roy Don. I didn't want to interrupt Philip.
Well, go ahead.
I was just curious as to what, if the governor had given any guidelines for the baseball. I don't know, I've spoken with the mayor and you both, Roy Don, about baseball and some of the concerns that have been brought to me. And just as far as I know, we're not going to do it if we can't do it safely, but I didn't know if they had any specifics as to anything hammered out on that as how to proceed.
No, they didn't say anything today, Matt, but I do know that UTRIP put out guidelines on their website, and we're just waiting to see if the governor puts any guidelines on us.
Okay.
I didn't get
to about it. I just wanted to bring that. I felt like I need to bring that up. And just
I didn't get to watch the governor today, but we'll find out before we open. And all of our coaches agreed. We had a coach.
We lost you, Roy Don. Okay.
There's 50 people to a field or whatever and stuff like that. We couldn't do it. And they didn't want to do it that way. But we're just really waiting to see. And we'll have other meetings and everything. I'll keep you informed along with the mayor and everybody else as it comes out. Right now, we just don't know a whole lot until he comes out May 31st and let us know.
Okay, thank you. And sorry for getting the switch around there.
That's right. All right, Philip, back to you, sir, for the to finish up your first report and move into the actual actuarial valuation.
Well, it's actually through with the other. I just got that actuarial valuation today, and I could not open it, so I actually hadn't reviewed it. Regina, is there any comments you want to make on it? I know you've looked at it.
It's really, really good. I mean,
good.
We're in pretty much low risk on everything. So.
Very good. Basically, what that means is, we do have to fund the local fireman's pension fund, and it's in good shape, and that's based on projections of who will retire when and what they will draw. So that's evaluated each year in case we do have to add money to it to cover those future needs. But that valuation is good. That means we do not have to add it at this time. That's it.
Thank you, Philip. Appreciate it. All right. All right, moving into old business, got 2 points to discuss. Last month, we put a set of tables and chairs for public auction. I think it was 40 fold-out tables that we have stored in the back here, and 30, keep me honest, Regina, 37 fabric chairs, 34. And we received 3 sealed bids. They were opened up, I believe, last Thursday, May the 5th at 10 a.m. We received a bid for $275 from Wade Knox Advocacy Center, a bid for $400 from Brown Street Church of Christ, and a bid for $519.11 from Little Rock Diamond Foundation. I believe that's Boys and Girls Foundation in Little Rock. But so we got 3 bids, and I'll entertain a motion as the council sees fit to accept the high bid.
I make the motion that we accept it. The highest bidder.
Motion's made. Do I have a second?
I second it, Michael.
All right, motion's made by Raymond Hatton and seconded by Michael. Any discussion?
Trey, Suzette.
Yes.
I noticed 2 of those bids were local from city affiliates here with the Wade Knox Center and the church. Maybe in the future we can consider those items to possibly stay local to help in the city on those entities to help them with their needs. And that's just something to think about for the future. But I would have liked to have seen those items stay local to help our citizens within the city, even at a lesser price. That's just my thoughts.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I at the risk of being wrong, I'm not necessarily convinced that the highest bid has to be accepted. But that's a decision the council need to discuss and move on.
So how do some of you other council members feel about that?
I agree with you, Suzette. I think it would be nice for the difference of $119.11 to let it go to a local group.
I see value in it. Ginger, do you see any issue with that?
If we sell it to someone for, I mean, what we did by the bidding process was try to establish what fair market value is. Certainly, I would love to see it stay locally with Brown Street Church of Christ or the Wade Knox Center, but we run into problems when we offer it to someone for less than fair market value. There are some situations where we accept higher bids, like if we're bidding out professional services, like for instance, it seems like I remember a while back a contract on air conditioning repair. We picked someone local that was maybe a little bit higher, but they were local and they expected to provide better services or quicker services because they were local. I think that would be a little hard to argue here that we have the ability to do that. The other possible concern on it would be, if Brown Street Church of Christ, is that Ephraim's church? If so, he would need to not vote on that one. I understand wanting to help local, but I think we open ourselves up to issues if we don't accept the highest bid here. But the chances of somebody complaining are pretty slim too for that small amount of money.
Okay.
Is that something we could consider in the future, Ginger?
I think what she means is, can we tailor the bid request so that the items actually stay within maybe a geographic region or within the city?
I don't think so. I think we have to open the bid up to the public for it to be a fair market value bid.
Okay, that's important to know. I'm glad to know that. Thank you, Ginger. Mayor.
Yeah, it's a good point, Suzette. Thank you. Any further discussion on it? There's been a motion to accept the highest bid. It's been seconded. Any other questions? All right, don't forget to unmute. Take it to a vote, then all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? All right. Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Next is just a quick update from me. I've put an email in your packets A few months back, the city council agreed to enter into a contract with local services agreement for a franchise fee audit in our easement. And that report is not yet finalized. I spoke with Tim McGraw today. He had a little bit of an update, but he's hoping to have us a full audit report by the June 15th city council. COVID has slowed his process down a little bit, but he did give me two cues, one of which was that the limited amount of information he has already received would indicate that the city has not fully collected on what we're owed. And secondly, is that our franchise fee is 4.25%. I believe that he said the going rate across the state in Arkansas was about 5%. And so that may be something we as a council want to consider when we get his report, and maybe something that they will work with us on if we choose to increase that franchise fee requirement to 5%. If you guys have any other questions, I'd ask you to contact me offline outside the council, and I get you the information I can. Or you can call Tim McGraw up. His telephone number is in that email if you had any specific questions to that audit. All right. All right, new business. We got 3 points to discuss, and then we will push towards an adjournment. All right. In your packet, Mr. Will Staley is here. He's from Thrive, and he's been working with us to get an estimate. Let me catch up the city's slide here. All right. Been working with us on a branding and marketing campaign. All right. You guys know that this is something that I've discussed with the council in various avenues and channels as to how we want to utilize our website and rebrand ourselves to the stage in Central Arkansas. And so what I proposed after speaking with Will are 5 essential categories or items. 1 is a website. 2 is an administrative package. 3 is a city orientation guide, a pamphlet essentially to be handed out to folks as they move in. A recruitment campaign and billboard design. And a rehash of the Lone Oak marketing video and Facebook advertisements to include the new logo and face types. Will, real quickly, what I'm going to do is turn it over to you and let you give a quick perspective on why you think these are important for any city looking to advertise.
Sure. Thanks everyone for having me. I really appreciate to see a lot of familiar faces. Yeah, so the important thing would be to roll out this new flag that you're standing behind. You know, this is a new logo that embodies the spirit of a lot of people coming together, Kickstart 2020, and you're starting to see it around town, and it is around town. And so, but we can do that even more professionally and very intentionally through the rollout of a visual identity that you have essentially already embraced, and that we now just need to make public in a more formal way. So that would be to design a website that is based off the Squarespace platform, which is very user-friendly. And it's the same platform that the Chamber of Commerce uses there. And then the administrative package would be, you know, everything consistent in terms of look and feel and color palette. So, you know, anything on cars or letterhead or newsletters, things like that. So yeah, it's just it can be very symbolic. It can be a new phase, and something that I've been telling our clients is that lots of times what businesses can be doing right now is during COVID is to retool and show that you're coming out of things with a stronger ship, and a really visible way to do that can be an announcement of a brand refresh. So that's just something to consider.
Well, appreciate you joining us. Thanks for that. As you can see on the slide, the sum totals of all 5 of these categories was roughly about $10,500 or so. But you know, Philip said earlier that we're limiting our purchases and we're making smart decisions because we don't know exactly what our sales tax is going to look like. All right. And so we're trying to be smart and set an example. I think it's important that I do the same thing. I look at a website as a calling card, and I think it's an essential part of a city. And so I spoke with him about how we could cut this back and still get the brunt of the purpose of this across. And we both believe that a website is appropriate. Now, if you look at the original budget, I believe we budgeted approximately $20,000 this year to go towards this. The estimate came in half of that, and I'm proposing that we defer even half of that still, and that we go ahead at this time and spend some money renovating the website. Michael actually told me this morning, you know, he looked at it and checked it out. Michael Jones, the new Vista position, and you know he's a younger guy. He looked at it and experienced it and said, yeah, you're right. There's some doors, there's some avenues that could be added that would make it a little more user friendly. And I can tell you from the administrative side too, what we currently have is not sustainable in terms of our ability to keep it updated because nobody in this office is, we don't have the certifications or the experience to update what we currently have. So what I want to do at this point is take a motion to entertain the purchase of a website in the administrative package.
Mr. Mayor, this is Ryan, and I'm going to abstain from this vote.
Thanks, Ryan. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, can you remind me budget-wise, this is something we had planned?
It is something that we had planned. Yeah, this was a part of that communication package that I put together part of last year, and this has been furloughed, pushed down the road. I was hoping to have a website plan up and running the beginning of this year, but that's okay. I mean, we're a few months behind, and
I move we move forward with the proposed website.
I've got the budget sitting here behind me. I'm not going to get it out because it'd take me a minute or two to look it up. But I looked at it the other day, Matt, and I'm fairly certain we had approximately $20,000 in this year's budget allocated towards marketing and website renovation. And you can put a website on a scale of $500 to $500,000. I mean, there's all types.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask because I don't memorize that budget either. So with that being said, I'd like to make a motion to proceed with the website administration package.
Second.
Yeah. Motion's been made by Matt Cordell, seconded by Ephraim Jones. Are there any questions, any discussion on it? Okay, if not,
Right. Mayor, I'm sorry, this is Jerry Beth. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just making sure I'm understanding. We're going forth with everything that was brought to our attention around the 10,500 mark.
No, ma'am. I'm glad you asked. Okay. What I'm proposing is that we, at this time, defer the city orientation guide, the recruitment campaign, billboard design, and the digital marketing design. Right now, what I'm asking the council to do is to move on the website renovation and the administrative package.
Okay, so $6,000.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Last chance. Any other questions? All right. Take it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, Will, I appreciate you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, next on the list, Depot scope of services from Revival Architecture. About this time, actually it's July of 2019, we released an RFQ because we've got some water intrusion. We got some just some maintenance issues with our depot. It's a gym. Lone Oak is unique, and it's something that we need to put forth some focus and some financial support to keep it up and running, keep it healthy. All right, so we released that RFQ. We had a committee of local folks who vetted the submissions. As a council, we chose Revival Architecture. Ryan Biles and myself have sat down with, gosh, their names are escaping me right now, but the two staples of Revival Architecture, and spoken with them about a scope and a plan forward. That's been put into your packet. And what they're proposing is essentially 3 phases. The first phase of which is a site survey and condition assessment. That cost is $4,500. It's a fixed cost. The second phase is architectural design and construction observation. And the third phase, optional phase, is essentially a landscape plan that would tie in the depot and potentially beautify the central portion of downtown. And as you can see in the packet, all the details are listed out and what they're in that scope of work, what they're proposing. So I will entertain a motion to accept scope of services from Revival Architecture as presented.
Can I ask a question, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Would this help identify the water issues in the bottom of the depot?
Absolutely.
I'm so moved.
All right, motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I think I heard Raymond Hatton. Motion by Coy Butler, seconded by Raymond Hatton. Any discussion?
Yes, Mayor, it's Suzette Elmore. Certainly something we want to put at the forefront of this list is the mold and mildew. And from my understanding, the architectural firm would not be the ones to do any mediation on any of that. It would have to be specialists to come out and give us a report. It's been cited that the mold and mildew is there. I think it's been ongoing for a long time. And I think we are going to also have to contact a remedial specialist out of Little Rock or North Little Rock or somewhere local to come over and give us an evaluation, because as we all know, that's a health hazard and many people use that building. So we're certainly going to have to work with the architectural firm or outside of them to look at those issues and get those resolved before we, move forward with having to do some of the minor issues.
Yes, ma'am. Ryan, could I have you put your architectural hat on for a minute and just kind of give us your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to. And this will partially address what Suzette had just brought up. So the extent and the type of any type of biological growth, mold or mildew, hasn't been determined. There is this suspicion that it does exist. And so this phase 1, which is what we're voting on this evening to execute, would include the discovery of that in the survey. And there's also the opportunity to address that in addition to any remediation that would have to be done exactly as Suzette has described by a qualified environmental specialist to mitigate those things and remove it. There's also design elements that could passively address those things in terms of ventilation and fresh air, for example, perhaps returning to, and this is coming from this architect who we're going to vote on tonight. They are aware of that and are including that in the things that they're looking for. And one potential solution could be returning the windows to operability so that fresh air is more introduced into the space. The other thing is then to also consider what mechanical provisions in the HVAC system that could be introduced. When the building restoration was done back in the 90s, it was prior to the current energy code and requirements. Now there's a much greater fresh air requirement that a new system would have to account for. So this initial phase 1 will assess all of those things, and then the reason why phase 2 is listed separate is because they don't know what design elements will be included until phase one is complete. So phase one is essentially the diagnosis and the examining of all the symptoms that we're seeing. I'm using a medical analogy, but the building's symptoms that it's displaying, diagnosing those things, and then phase two is the operation.
Thank you.
Among those things are included the mold and mildew. Yeah.
Yeah, but they wouldn't actually do the remediation of that, right? We would have to have specialists come in and do that. I just want to verify that.
Yes, what we would potentially be doing, I think this will answer your question, is entering into another contract with the specialist on the advice and the guidance of the architect, who is going to do the initial visual survey of the elements that they see. Because one thing we have to diagnose is where is the moisture coming from that's causing these conditions, right? So we can assume all day, but until they dig in and find these things, which is what this phase one provide them the opportunity to do, we can treat the symptom all day, but we haven't, diagnosed the actual source. So yes, to answer your question, another group would be brought in to do the mitigation, but the initial visual part of the survey and the survey of the conditions that have led to the symptom will be uncovered in this phase, and then additional professionals would be required to actually do the work of the mitigation.
Yes. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, good conversation, guys. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Jerry Beth, make sure I got a motion and a second. All right. Any other questions before we take it to a vote? All right, don't forget to unmute. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. All right. Well done. All right, last discussion item under new business tonight is the plan to regrade the Mallard Point easement after the Kirk Street and South Center culverts have been upgraded. And Jim Kelly spoke with you guys about that earlier, that there's a plan to get both of those culverts, the South Center culvert, upgraded within about 2 weeks. It's going to take us approximately 5 to 6 weeks before we can actually get to Kirk Street, because we've got to do a no-rise study to make sure that there's no impact downstream of that installation. So this conversation started back last April when Matt Cordell and I held a session with some Mallard Point residents at the Lone Oak Community Center. And since there's been a lot of research and conversation, and I believe we've had at least one extensive working session on this topic. And I've given this presentation multiple times, I know, as well, to the Infrastructure Committee for the Lone Oak 2022 Infrastructure Committee. So what I'm going to do is I've got a couple of photographs and a video just for public observation, but I'm going to let Matt Cordell introduce this. Matt, floor is yours, sir.
Hey guys, just a little background on this. I mean, most of y'all know the situation in Mallard Point, much like the rest of Lone Oak, when we have excessive rains, but it's not just excessive rains that give us trouble in that neighborhood. And that's something that, just, it really doesn't matter to Hill of Beans. That's something that I saw that I thought, as a member of city council, I could help some people, help them out. And they were, it's been like this for a long time. And these are a couple pictures. And the first picture that Trey showed you, simply, I think this, to me, it's pretty simple. We have an easement with some ditches, and much like any other easement with ditches that we have access to, it wouldn't take a whole lot to clear this out. This is a ditch looking back to the west, and the whole west side of this neighborhood, these ditches, when it rains, looks like this. And it holds water, and if we're worried about mosquitoes and everything else and just public good, that needs to be addressed. The next picture shows looking back to the north, and that's where this water sits. When it's high, it runs all the way across the street and it'll flow to the east. But once it gets to that level where it's lower than the middle of the street, it just sits there. And it's just a simple fact of these ditches that are there have silted in, and they need to be graded to make this drain. Jack, our engineering firm has done, and this was not after an excessive rain. Yes, when it rained 9 inches one day, it was awful everywhere, and it was terribly awful out here. In fact, a lady called me, that only has a car, and she wasn't able. If she'd had a reason to leave, she couldn't because of the water situation. The road's in bad shape, and it's not going to get any better until this is addressed. I know this is probably not ideal, and this is not how things have been done, or it probably could have been handled another way. But the fact of the matter is, for 14, 15 years, this has been adopted by the city. There's a letter in that packet where we adopted the streets, and we can't take good care of the streets if we don't take care of this issue. You can show that video tray there, but I took my photos just not too long after this, and it's just every time it rains more than half inch, and the ground gets saturated, and it just doesn't leave. The residents understand when we get a big rain, it's going to be there, but it just sits and stays. There are approximately there are 24 homes out there, and I couldn't find. I reached out to some folks. I don't know how many lots are still for sale. I know there are some lots that are owned by individuals, but I couldn't find any that were for sale and on my very brief online search. We've got 24 families out there. That's about 80 people, I'm roughly estimating. And our engineering firm has given us an estimate, and that was for a contractor to come in and do it. Jim has looked, and the numbers he's gotten back to me is about $10,000, and I think 20 working days? Yeah, 20 working days and $10,000 to help alleviate this. I've told the residents, we get this done, hopefully we will get it done. There's no guarantee it's going to fix everything, and I'm sure there's still some issues to be addressed, but I think it's a step in the right direction. The red on this map here, or this plot, is basically the ditches we're talking about, and those that run in between. You'd have to zoom in quite a bit to see those that run in between some of the properties to the street. Those are the ones that really back to the west need to be addressed. So I move that we move forward on this, and I'd be glad to try to answer any questions I can, or Jim or the mayor or anybody else.
Matt, an official
make a motion.
Okay, Matt's made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion is made by Matt Cordell, seconded by Michael Florence. Any questions or discussion?
So Trey, I do have some notes that I'd like to add to the discussion for the
Absolutely.
record.
Yes, ma'am.
So normally when a developer develops a subdivision, they're responsible to put in a drainage system. Now, from what I understand, this goes back 17 years to 2003. And the original plan that the engineers put in place was diverted from. So that's the reason we have these issues. And these people have lived with these problems for years. It has been so unfortunate. I've spoken to several of them, and some of them, their children can't even play in their own yard. And that's how much of an inconvenience it's been for years. But I certainly want to mention that the question and validity of some of these letters with the former city council, water department, letters that went out to the owner stating, some diversions had been made, they needed to be corrected. Now the problem has continued all of these years. We're a new city council, so it kind of falls on our shoulders to try to remedy this situation to all of those good homeowners out there. And it's very unfortunate. Matt, I'm not sure if you have an estimate on the cost of what that's going to be. That's something I'd like to know. But Ginger, you correct me if I'm wrong, that from what I understand, this is something that should have been dealt with years ago. And I think the engineers would agree with that. because I think they had it in their plan to make from the beginning. So here we are, 17 years later, still dealing with the same problems and making this land almost a misery for these families that live out there. From understanding, they did not receive property disclosures on any of the flooding. So can you kind of give us your input on that, Ginger?
Thank you. Thank you. Basically, I'm a little confused as to the motion because it sounds like what I think you're actually putting forward is that the city accept this easement that Mr. Lucas has proposed, so that the city gets to correct Mr. Lucas's problem that Mr. Lucas created by him failing to construct this properly in the first place. This easement, I've spoken with the mayor about it, and we have different opinions on this, obviously. Basically, this is putting onto the city the responsibility that this developer had when he created this property. And now the city's going to take it on. And I think this is a precedent that we're establishing, that we're going to clean up everyone else's mess. This developer still has other property out there that could be sold to finance his own fix of the property that's out there. Instead, he's having the city to clean up his mess. And I'm obviously opposed to that because I think that's improper for the city to have to clean up what this developer failed to do properly in the first place. Basically, this is an easement that attempts to put on the city what the developer should have done in the first place. This is not a gift. It's been referred to as a gift of an easement, but it's no more a gift than if I was giving you a credit card bill of mine to pay. It's not a gift. It's him transferring his problems to us. And what we're also doing without having a master plan on this is we don't have any sort of master plan to know for sure that this easement is going to actually clean up the problem. We don't have any, or whether it's going to cause additional problems for people on down the road. I became first involved in this after the mayor already promised Mr. Lucas that we would take the easement. It was the mayor sent a letter in May of 2019 stating that the letter was to proceed with the Mallard Point easement. I never was asked about this as the city's attorney until September or October of 2019. And at that point, I raised these issues, but the mayor had already promised it to Mr. Lucas at that point, which I think obviously was a mistake. The mayor asked Laney Richmond with the Municipal League whether the city could take on fixing drainage problems. But I feel like I also spoke to Mr. Richmond at the Municipal League about this. And the problem with us taking this on is that I believe that we're taking on a problem that we don't have all the information about, and we're fixing a problem that we didn't create, and that the landowner, the developer out there still has other properties out there that he could sell or finance the fix of this himself. Instead, the city's going to take on his problem. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's a good precedent for us to start here. I hate this for the property owners out there. But their cause of action is against Mr. Lucas and his entities, not against the city. Now, if we take this on, we may create a cause of action if we damage their properties in a way that creates an inverse condemnation, which is basically where we have caused a diminished value of their properties. I am firmly against this and have been from the beginning, or from when I was finally asked about it. And I think that the city does not need to do this.
I have a question. Y'all hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, this flooding problem that they having over there, what is the difference in the flooding problem that I'm having over here in my ward? I mean, is it something that can be fixed quick and hours can't, or I'm lost on it because I've been here 20 some years and my house usually floods until I did something myself to it every time we have a rain. And I'm talking about my house flood, the yard is flooded, everything is flooded. We just had a group of people come in right before the corona thing, about 2 months before that live over in the other district over here. I think it's Raymond's district, I ain't for sure. And they was complaining about flooding and everything. And we said we'll do our best of what we could do to fix it. But what about those people? over there? And what about people in my ward, even myself, that have floods
Yeah.
almost every time it rains?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, Ephraim. It's a comprehensive issue. And we have taken steps first, actually, to address the water issues in the southeast part of town. And kind of actually rocked the boat and upset some folks by getting the county involved. But a lot of the water, all the water in the southeast portion of our community flows out through the Roshai easement, and then out to the Waddock branch, and then on out to the east. There are some impediments, and we've had a working session to show some of those issues. And when that weir was knocked down, that made a huge difference for the southeast part of town, particularly the folks on Chestnut. And so we have a submission in with CAPD to hopefully secure a $125,000 drainage study. All right. The size and the scale and the scope, and Suzanne asked the question just a few minutes ago in terms of price. And Jack Bond gave us a price of about $35,000 for a contractor to go in and regrade this easement. Jim's put pen to paper. He studied it, looked at it as well. And what it would cost us in man hours, time, fuel costs was about $85,000 to $10,000 and about 4 weeks worth of work. All right. We are taking strides to address not just the drainage in Mallard Point. That's one of the biggest purposes of pushing both the culverts, is to push more water down South Center Street and to get it out, and to open that up first, and to open up Kirk Street first before we move on Mallard Point. All right.
Could you speak to the status of this easement? Because I thought that I wasn't moved to accept an easement. I'm moving to spend the money to dig out some ditches. As my that's as informal and about as rough as I can put it, I guess. But we can clean that up. But it's my understanding that that easement was accepted by a zoning committee or planning or whatever. You tell me.
They did. They reviewed it. And my understanding that Mr. Lucas takes this to the courthouse and files it. All right.
I was under the impression that was
That's
already
not
done.
correct. The city has to accept the easement as well. He can file it, but if we haven't accepted the easement, then that there's two parts to that: him granting it and us accepting it. The city council needs to accept that easement, not just Mr. Lucas giving us that problem.
So the motion then, Matt, to be more comprehensive, would be to accept what he's proposed and to move forward with the plan to regrade it.
So moved.
So I want to make sure we all understand this. So, Mayor or Ginger, can y'all explain this to us in layman's terms, what we're asking for here?
Well, I think Matt was saying something differently than what the mayor said. Matt was saying that he's just asking to clean out existing ditches, is my understanding. The mayor was trying to throw in the easement part of it as well. And my understanding is that's not part of what Matt's motion is.
Those ditches are in this said easement, is my understanding. There's just not what we have now is not, my understanding, what we have now is not wide enough to get the equipment in there and do the work. This easement overlays these ditches that we've got the estimate to dig on. I mean, they're there.
That is correct. So the red line that you're looking at essentially just embellishes the easement that's actually already in the plat, makes it wider.
Okay. You're talking about an easement that's already there or ditches that are already there. Those are two different things. If you're talking about ditches that are already there, I don't think that's correct, that these ditches are all the way around this development like that. The easement, a smaller easement may be there, but this larger easement and the larger ditches are not there, is my understanding.
Yeah, currently there's an easement that goes around the entire subdivision. And the original drainage plan had the water flowing out from the center of the street to the outside of the subdivision and then south. That easement is there and overlaid on top of a swell, call it a ditch or whatever descriptor you want, but obviously the water is not getting to the outside of the subdivision and then making its way down south.
Yeah, those ditches is a loose term because they're probably not 2 foot deep. It's and I say a ditch, call it what you will, but these drainage structures are there. And before all the houses and years ago, it's always been bad, but before the development, the empty lots could soak up a little bit more of the water and it wasn't as bad. And water stood on empty lots. With rooftops and driveways and everything else, it ends up in the street. And one of those pictures I sent you, or we showed there was, there's a ditch under that water. It's just going uphill and that doesn't work.
Well, it's not a preferable decision. None of us were in a chair 13, 14, 17 years ago. And all these are good points. All right. We have a completely different planning commission. We've got a unified development code. We've got different people in place honoring a process. All right. Hopefully the situation happened at Mallard Point almost 2 decades ago won't happen again.
I'll second the motion.
I think we have a responsibility to right this wrong. We have an opportunity as well. And given the size and scope of this project, I think we owe it to them. So,
Mayor, I agree with that. And I don't know that we owe it to them. I think we do have responsibilities to all of our citizens in the city. But from my understanding, maybe you have visited with Mr. Lucas and he is not willing to develop this drainage. Is that correct?
Well, so when we had a working session, you guys left a charge to speak with him and ask if he would make some concessions, contribute financially or otherwise. He was unwilling to do so.
So, Ginger, do we have any recourse with that, with Mr. Lucas?
The landowners do.
The landowners.
Right. And the city could possibly bring a cause of action on it. Part of our problem is that it is older, but it was clear in 2003 and then again in 2005 that this obligation was on Mr. Lucas, not the city, to do this. The city then began taking it on or attempting to take it on when Mayor Reed sent a letter in May of 2019 saying that the city intended to act on it. And that was before it had ever gone before me or the council or anyone.
I'm not a council member, but could I make a quick comment here? Just, I understand all that, and those residents have recourse, and the city may have recourse. But Mr. Lucas fought a lawsuit out there with his lender for years and probably paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in law fees and lost, but still, why would we, if we force it back to that sort of an action, you're basically just putting it off for the unforeseeable future is what you're doing, in my opinion. Again, I don't get to vote, but that's my thought.
I think
I agree with
that
you.
we have hashed this and beat a dead horse to death. And the city owes it to the people because we said we would take over that property and maintain the streets. To maintain the streets, we have to have drainage. I think we need to be careful in the future to put in place requirements that things like this don't occur again, but it's not going to do us any good. We've been going around and around the same issues and the same conversations for several months, and we just need to take care of this problem and move on.
I want to step back for a second. Motion was made by Matt Cordell. Jerry Beth, just to be very clear, you got all that tracked. There was a second made by Michael Florence, and we're in the middle of a discussion. Just want to make sure that that's been recorded.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. I've got I just want to make sure that I'm clear. I've got a motion made by Matt and a second by Ephraim, but of course that was me just hearing.
Ephraim did it as well later on. Michael did it initially right after I made it.
Okay. Okay. Okay, well, I'll change that to Michael. Now, we are voting on bond engineers going in and spending the $35,000.
No, ma'am. No.
Okay.
So the plan is for the city.
For $10,000, we can fix the problem.
That's correct, ourselves, in
Okay.
about 4 weeks worth of manpower.
Okay, I'm not seeing that in my notes. And maybe I misunderstood. I just said 10,000 feet.
Obviously I'm against it, but if I may correct or clarify the motion, I think the motion is for us to accept the easement and to clear out the easement and explore methods to clear out the easement. Is that correct, Matt?
If accepted, if we do have to do that, and of course you refer to you on that, but yes, accept it and basically continue with the plan that bond engineering put forth. But bond engineering, the $35,000 was a contractor price, not what Jim has estimated that the city can do it for.
And that 35 wasn't from bond. That was just a request of getting a scope of price on.
It was in that document, but again, yeah.
So are we specifically going in there and redigging around that whole subdivision, the drainage easement around it? And if so, how deep?
I'm gonna leave that to the experts. Deep enough that the water leaves it.
Who has that answer?
Until
Jim,
we get over.
I would think that would be shot by an engineer.
No, we can grade it. Jim, go ahead. Weigh in on it.
We would just initially go over there and shoot elevations, and then start at our lowest point that we're trying to drain furthest away. As far as an estimate on how deep the ditch is when we reach the southern point, I don't have an exact footage number for you off the top of my head. It's whatever is required to get it to drain.
So are we voting on an estimate of 8,500 to 10,000? Is that what I'm hearing? And we don't expect any additional cost?
No, that's the estimate that we're working with, Suzette. What we're voting on is to accept the easement that's been proposed, and for the city to go in and devote manpower and regrade it ourselves. Regrade the easement around the subdivision and connect it to the ditch that's down by the railroad. So that's what we're voting on. The 10,000 number is an estimate of what it would cost for us to do this in-house.
Gotcha.
I realize that, yes. So,
and the consideration to consider there is that if we don't do it deep enough or correct, then now we've taken on that problem by us taking on this job.
Yeah, those are points that I want us to understand, Ginger. And the other concern I have is that if someone comes out there to purchase additional land and put in a subdivision, we've got to make it clear that it's not the city's responsibility to put in a drainage plan. I mean, I know we built our subdivision and we paid for the drainage plan at Prairie Estates. That was our responsibility. I guess I struggle with why we do it for some and not others. And what is that going to reflect on us in the future? That's something, you know, we could hash this out all day. I understand that. But I'm concerned about the legalities of it in the future for the city. And the other thing is, I want us to make it crystal clear whose responsibility this was in the beginning to make this original plat plan work out with the drainage, and that the engineer firm, the consultants actually drew out, okay? I hate it that those people have had to live in that misery, and it is so unfair. And I think every one of us across the board would agree that we understand the problem. We don't agree with it, but we understand that their children can't even play in their yard on rainy days. And with that said, and you know, not knowing how the future is going to lie with that subdivision. I just want everybody to know whose responsibility that was. And if we all agree to move forward with this, that we have come to the aid of a private landowner who is accepting monies for those lots. Am I correct on that, Ginger?
I mean, it was the developer's responsibility to do it. And now the city is taking on that responsibility without having a master plan to know whether this will help or not, and without knowing how deep the ditch needs to be, or without knowing anything. And we're taking on that responsibility through this motion.
I think we've moved forward diligently.
Without a master plan.
And so I think, you know, I presented a proposal. We have a way to move that water off the properties. And we are looking in the review mirror. We don't want to set future precedent. Like I said, and I don't think this is an opportunity to help an entire neighborhood, not a developer. And that's why I wanted to propose it. And I think
To be clear, it will help both.
I think Matt did a good job explaining the story.
Y'all clearly know, and the people out there know, we're in this to help roughly 80 people, 80 citizens of Lone Oak. If it helps somebody else, it's a coincidence.
I mean, we didn't bring up the stagnant water issues and mosquito issues that go along with all this either. So there's a huge public benefit case to be argued as well. So I want to continue. If there's any other major points of discussion, we've had both positive and oppositional statements. And I understand it's something that's that means a lot. But I think for the amount of money, for the plan that we have, we can help a whole lot of people. All right. I'm going to give just a quick second. If there are any other questions, are there any other discussion items? Because I've got a motion to accept the proposed easement and to move on the on regrading the plan around the subdivision. Been made by Matt Cordell and seconded by Ephraim.
Wow. So I'm going to go with my fellow councilman and do the right thing, but I just want it on the record that, in fact, we are coming to the aid of a private landowner. And I just want everybody to know that I don't agree with that at all.
Yes, ma'am.
But on the other hand, I know we have got to help those people out there. And I'm going to go against, you know, even my knowledge of what should have happened, unless Ginger thinks there's some type of recourse toward the developer that we could take, or that those landowners could take. And I know y'all don't want to table it. We've worked on this a long time. So I'm going to follow suit with what my fellow councilmen do.
Thank you, Sue. I appreciate it. All right. Last chance, a couple more moments. Any other discussion points? Okay, guys, we're going to take it to a vote. Don't forget to unmute your mics. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Michael. Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, the motion carries. All right, I appreciate it. We're at 2 hours. There's a lot of work done in a virtual council. We're gonna do real quick. I need a motion to approve to pay the bills.
Second.
Second, Boy Valor.
Okay, Jerry Beth, did you get that?
No.
Okay.
I got Coy Butler seconded, but there was about 4 people that said so moved. I heard Matt Cordell. I think I heard Matt. So I'm gonna go with him.
Okay, so you've got a motion. Do you have a second to pay the bills?
Yes.
Motion's made, second. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
All right. I'll
Hold
ask
on.
you. All opposed? Okay.
So nobody opposed?
There was no opposition. A voice comes in late, so.
Okay, okay.
That motion passes. Thank you very much. A couple of just 3 quick announcements. We do have a planned condemnation meeting, May the 21st. Is anybody, I'll tell you what we're gonna do. I'm gonna get back with you because we pushed it back a month already. It's our quarterly meeting. It should have been in April. I'm gonna push it back one more, probably till June, simply because I prefer to have these condemnation meetings in person if we can. Our first in-person city council is gonna be planned to be June the 15th right now. So stand by for more information on that. If you guys are really opposed to having a condemnation meeting over Zoom, then please send me an email and let me know. Because I haven't exactly got my mind made up yet if I'm going to recommend pushing that back or not. I'm leaning towards it. If you haven't done your census, please be accountable. Please go get your census knocked out. And promote it and encourage your constituents to do the same thing. We're at 60% participation rate right now. Our goal is 90% by the end of August. Val Turner's doing a really good job. Really thankful for her. So just keep the momentum going. I believe we can get there. I've got a video that's coming out that I did in collaboration with Matt Boyles and Jason Dorsey. It's got some dates and some information on what this reopening actually looks like at our level. And so some things have already taken place, like the city hall is going to open up on Monday, but the water department's already open. We're already taking cash. The community center's back open. So there's a couple things coming down the pipe, and I'm trying to get that information out to the community. Hopefully I have just a quick video soon. Also, it will address some support and financial aid avenues for some of our small business owners in town. It's been a long meeting, guys. I really appreciate your patience. I'm going to open the floor up just real quickly to anybody, any council member has something they want to get out to the public. Are there any announcements? All right. Well, thank you for the time. I appreciate the work you guys are putting in for the city. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Very well. Thank you. You guys have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.